Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment. I'm your host, Alexis Soto, and I'm joined by David Francisco. This is the podcast that brings you all of the latest coming out of the world of movies and more. And as a reminder, of course, throughout the last few weeks, we've had episodes devoted to reviews to some of the biggest sensations happening right now: Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse and Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. With both David Francisco and with Peter Martinez. A bit of a programming note, of course. There most likely won't be an episode next week. I am going to embark on a 7-day cruise. And by the way, I'm not saying that to show off. I'm just kind of pissed off that the week that I'm about to embark on my first cruise, there's so many shitty headlines involving people fucking dying at sea, up the wazoo. If it's not the fucking, 5 billionaire people who just, died in an explosion at a submarine, it's the 2 tragic refugee ferries that were overloaded and sank, and no one cared. Even the media didn't care to give them. You probably don't even know that even happened, but the media didn't care to cover that, so there's that. Also, fucking orcas are just waging a war on small boats off the Spanish coast. I don't know what to say. My dad also watched Titanic last week, so I don't know. I'm getting really a lot of bad vibes going on all over the place. So of course this happens to me. So if this is the last time you hear from me, hey, it's been real. If I don't come back, I don't know who will even care to do this show anymore, but there's that. So yeah, it's all of that has been happening, and because of that, there will likely not be a recording next week. And keep in mind, of course, even though it is the summertime, it's still been incredibly busy for me. Even though I have most of my time is off, the days that I don't have off are just really exhausting. I'm last week, I came back after a day with 3rd graders at SeaWorld. Now this week's field trip was to a zoo, and I hate zoos because they're so fucking boring and you're walking all the time and there's not really much to do, much to see. Okay, so it's it's been a lot going on right now for me. So and then at the same time, if you also heard last week's recording, I also want to apologize to you guys because I didn't even realize how bad I sounded. I've been going through some allergy issues, and I also turns out, and I don't have any reason to hide this, but due to some kind of genetic mutation, my doctor found a polyp in my nostril. And I had to take medication to shrink that down. The medication worked. I'm fine. I feel like I sound better now. I get these weird swings of congestion that come left and right. And so, again, I am sorry for the quality of my voice last week. I was just really shocked when I heard it back. I had no idea that's how bad it sounded. I'm like, fuck. And also I was tired. That's not a good combination when, that happens. So, just wanted to put all the cards out on the table for why things sounded the way that they did, why things are the way that they are, and how things are going to look like coming up. I know I have Peter for at least 2 months, and hopefully he should be making some more appearances as the weeks go by. I know in July, and I keep saying this, we have some pretty stacked releases as well in July. Of course, everybody is excited for Barbie Sensation. I guess we're going to have to go see Oppenheimer. I mean, Nolan is a great filmmaker, even though personally I think he is kind of a dick. And still, it came out recently in the news that in the time that, and we all remember this, when he was trying to get people back in the theaters when there were no vaccines, back in literally the summer of 2020 for his Tenet film. There were even representatives acting on his behalf at Warner Brothers, lobbying the disgraced former governor of New York, Andrew Cuomo, who, by the way, is disgraced for a number of reasons. To look up any of his scandals. Mostly, he killed people, but of course he also had sexual assault allegations or sexual harassment allegations, whatever it was. There were people working on behalf of Nolan and Warner Brothers to lobby that disgraced former governor to convince him to open theaters in late summer 2020, which I have to remind people at that time, that would have been a suicide run to do that. I mean, in the sense that, well, you're signing up to get COVID, especially since there were no vaccines at that point. Remember, I didn't go back into a theater until, I think it was May 2021. It was May 2021, so that was still almost from what, July when it came out, July 2020 to May 2021. That was still way in advance of when anybody should have gone to a theater. Remember, there was a whole thing. Even Tom Cruise was getting on the propaganda. I don't know if you've noticed lately, but Tom Cruise likes to involve himself in some kind of like, he sees himself as this guy that, wants to promote the theater experience, and I appreciate that. Of course, I mean, I do. Sometimes I think he maybe goes a bit too far, like in that whole Tenet mania. There was this highly publicized appearance when I think he was watching the movie with Nolan, and he had one of those like filtered masks that everyone was saying was not good for him to be wearing. And then, lest we forget, he's also one of the people who was, gushing in the trades about how much he loved the Flash movie. So it's like, and interestingly enough, lately he seemingly was having a diva off with, of all people, Christopher Nolan, because he was completely caught by surprise that his upcoming film Mission Impossible, I believe it's called Dead Reckoning Part 1, which is also one of the ones in July that we're looking forward to seeing how it's going to be. I mean, the Mission Impossible films have all been good. Yeah. Especially that last one was really good. So we're all looking for, and the trailers have been amazing. But he was caught completely by surprise that somehow, and again, it's, how does that happen? How are you Tom Cruise and that happens to you where, he didn't realize that his movie would only get a single week with the premium screens. The premium screens are IMAX, Dolby Digital. And it's like, well, dude, that's how every film, I mean, it's not fair how one of the most visually impressive films ever, Across the Spider-Verse, only had a single week of premium screens to itself, and then it lost them the following week to Transformers of all things. And not knocking Transformers, but like, kind of like, hey, I'm sorry, but Transformers is not anywhere near as visually stunning as Across the Spider-Verse. But because we're in a summer box office where every single week there is a big tentpole opening and nothing else really, that's the difference. Is in years past, there would be a blockbuster opening every freaking week, but there would also be some flavor. There'd be a low budget drama or a period piece or a comedy. There'd be several comedies at one point, or an animated film, or something to, draw other people's or other viewers' attention, except just the big blockbuster. So what I'm saying is Cruise was completely caught by surprise. And basically, I don't know how, he's got some juice. Like, he always has, connections. Barbie ended up losing a lot of those screens. So because of all of this, like, drama happening, and by the way, I think Barbie and Oppenheimer also happened to come out the week of Comic-Con. But maybe that's not even saying that much, considering that we're not expecting a big Comic-Con this year. Yeah. Not that I ever put too much stock in it. I've always said that most of the headlines that come out of Comic-Con, in the end, don't really amount. You'll be lucky if they actually do amount to something. For example, who remembers Comic-Con 2019 when they brought out Mahershala Ali and announced him as Blade? By the way, where's that now? It's nowhere. It It's literally dead in the water. So, and like, things don't come to fruition. Comic-Con is also the place where Ben Affleck lied to everybody saying that he was still going to be playing Batman. And then what happens later that year? It turns out he's not playing Batman anymore. I mean, he ended up but not for the film that he was supposed to write and direct and star in. Mm. That was the different situation. And even last year, that was my first in-person attendance. And the thing that I loved about it was how little I cared for any of the news that was being made. I wasn't there for that. I was there to actually be on the convention floor. And by the way, if you like this kind of stuff, to me anyway, that's the main event. Unless you're passionate about Marvel and DC, but let's be real here. How many people are really passionate about Marvel Studios or DC these days? The math doesn't seem to suggest that any longer. Mm. And if you also think back to last year, look at all of those like announcements that were made on Marvel Studios' slate. And think just now, just about a year later, there's a real possibility some of those are never going to be made. And if they are, do you even care? So again, Comic-Con has always been a conversation driver, to be fair, but I never really put too much stock in it. I think the most we get out of Comic-Con, at least from our podcast's point of view, are the trailers that drop. And then we talk about them. And there've been some pretty good trailers. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, David. Now, this also suggests my point, which it doesn't amount to much of anything, but it was at Comic-Con. Dear God, I think it was Comic-Con 2015. It was a whole year before, right? Where they first dropped the teaser trailer for Suicide Squad, which included audio of Bohemian Rhapsody, correct?
Well, I think so.
It was a whole year before, because remember, the first Suicide Squad film was released theatrically in August 2016. Now, that would only be a month before, because Comic-Cons happened July. The first anything wouldn't happen a month before. Now, I'm sure what happened was July 2016 happened, and they had a new trailer, but I want to say the first ever trailer for Suicide Squad happened at Comic-Con. And it made a big splash with, especially with the brilliant song choice. But remember, again, that in and of itself is an infamous trailer because it's one of the best trailers I think still I've ever seen. But again, remember, what came out later was that trailer was so disingenuous that later they had to bring in the people who cut that trailer to help cut the film because it wasn't at all the same. Mm. So, which that should only people keep that in mind later on when we talk about The Flash and just like the troubled history DC has had this entire time. So yeah, Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning, Barbie, Oppenheimer. I'm sure there are other films that are coming out in the summer. I mean, for one, I know one of the ones that I'm looking forward to, and this will be in August, is the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah.
That one is looking really... And by the way, I'm not a diehard, TMNT fan. Like, I have to say, I avoided the Michael Bay films. I know people liked them and enjoyed them. I didn't really care for the design of the creatures. So I just, I skipped those films. Even some of the animated stuff post 2007, I know there was maybe one or two animated films. Not really, they didn't really grab my interest. The only thing that ever really, I would say, made me like the franchise was not the original, but it was the 2003 iteration of the series. It ran for several seasons. To me, that was the iteration that had the Shredder as an Utrom, I believe. That was an alien creature that was encased in like a cybernetic being. And this is also an iteration of the series that went into the future. They had a whole season where they traveled to the future, then they came back. There was this like really antagonistic FBI agent called Bishop that was always after them. Like, I don't know if you ever caught this show, but it would be on Cartoon Network. It would be on Cartoon Network and Fox Kids. This is from 2003 to 2007.
No, I caught that one.
Interesting. Okay, that one that was a. You should watch that. Write that down. I think you'd like that show. Is right up your alley. Honestly, and to me that was the era I was watching all this kind of animated shows. So
no, I mean I wasn't the biggest TMNT fan, so and I'm just mostly excited about this one because of the animation and the voices caught me right away.
Right.
Those kids. I mean, they're kids.
Yeah.
They're not. Someone said this. Like they don't. In the past iterations, they've always just sounded like surfer bros, but this one though is just like no, these are just regular kids wanting to have fun.
And part of the reason why the trailer is so good is it gives you a nice sample of the sharp writing. Like for one, it always gets me when one of the turtles says, I don't know, like you ratted them out, and then their dad was like, don't use that word that way, because he himself is a rat. Master Splinter, I believe.
Yeah, it's the one that goes, hey, come on, man, it's 2023. It's just like, oh, sorry. And I love the, so you're hit by radioactive goo. It's like, well, we prefer the word ooze, it just sounds better. Ooze. Just the way he does the hand motion.
Delivery of that is great.
So good.
Yeah. So it's like, that one is definitely on my radar. I feel like that's always a good time for that kind of animated film to come out. Remember, that was the same month last year where they had Dragon Ball Superhero. Which I happened to rewatch at home this past week, and the animation holds up. Even though I think it was experimental for them, that was the first time they ever delved into like 3D animation for them. It, we'll see where it goes. Mm-hmm. Another one, by the way, and the trailer came out this week. I know Alexis had to have been very excited for it because she was even messaging me before the trailer had come out. The film is called Challengers. It stars Zendaya. It also stars Josh O'Connor, and I believe it also stars Mike Feist. And it is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who honestly, mostly known for movies like Bones and All and Suspiria, and mostly Call Me By Your Name, which was pretty terrific. Now, the trailer kind of confused me to an extent because that was not the movie I thought I read originally. So I'm going to read. There's already a description hilarious enough on Letterboxd. I'm going to read what this says, okay? But I feel like more. I mean, what did you get out of the trailer? Did you see the trailer?
I didn't. But I saw images of it.
Uh-huh.
I can't really say much though.
Okay. Here's the thing. Because when the story first broke that Zendaya, Josh O'Connor, and Mike Feist, which we all know who those are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Would be in a movie together. I believe it was in that first announcement that it was going to be sort of a love triangle kind of a situation. But sort of, not really. Let me see what this says here. Tennis player turned coach Tashi has taken her husband Art and transformed him into a world-famous Grand Slam champion. To jolt him out of his recent losing streak, she makes him play a challenger event close to the lowest level of pro tournament, where he finds himself standing across the net from his former best friend and Tashi's former boyfriend. Oh, so she dates both of these guys at different times, and these guys used to be best friends. Okay. We'll see.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's the full extent of what's supposed to be in here. I know that there was supposed to. I don't know if maybe people misconstrued it, but originally there was supposed to be far more sparks happening in that than just a simple, oh, she was with this guy first, and then she ended up being with that guy, and now it's awkward.
Hmm.
But it was a good trailer though. Real interesting, and I'm sure it's gonna get the Zendaya fans in the theater. I think that comes out in September. That's when that one is coming out. So, do you have, by the way, any of the things that I just mentioned, or maybe there's one that I haven't? But is there something that you're looking forward to the most? Not the turtle movie.
I mean Barbie. Mainly. Mainly just Barbie. I haven't seen a lot of movies from Greta Gerwig. I think it's just Little Women.
Did you ever see Lady Bird?
Yes, I did see that one. Okay. Yes.
Lady Bird and Little Women are the ones that she directed, and I believe she also wrote the screenplay for 20th Century Women. She did not direct it, but she, I think, wrote the screenplay for that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. But I mean, as a filmmaker, though, I think she's fantastic, so I'm just excited what she's going to do with this. And, I mean, there's, like, a lot of potential for this movie, but I'm open for anything, so... yeah, that's more exciting.
Yeah, and I can't believe I even forgot to mention this. Maybe because it feels like so many people have already seen this movie, even though it hasn't opened yet. But there was one glaring omission, which was Dial of Destiny.
Oh,
the fifth Indiana Jones film, and I it's like it almost even feels like it's an afterthought because well, I just said it. Like so many people have already written reviews. And it's not, stirred up the most or the best kind of excitement. In fact, it's kind of dampened things. In particular with, the things that are being criticized for it. I do want to, I don't know, David, how have you felt about it? I'm going to look up, I know Brendan Hodges, he's somebody who I quote a lot. He has a lot of brilliant tweets. And I want to read what he wrote about his thoughts on the film, which I thought were very balanced, because usually a negative review is a negative review, but I think he really came from it from a place of love and had some great and not so great things to say. But from what you've seen, are you nervous? Are you excited? I think you yourself are somebody that has liked these movies in the past.
Yeah, I've enjoyed them. I watched basically all three of them in one sitting. And so, yeah, I guess you can say I'm kind of invested in it. But overall, I'm still pretty excited about it. I'm looking forward for like a good time, really, in the theater. I don't know. The people like looking at this movie going, kind of want to talk shit about it. I just don't know what they kind of expect from it. Like, I know the third one is like the perfect one for some of them and all that. But I mean, when I rewatched some of them, I haven't rewatched third, but like I know rewatching those first two, it was just kind of like, this movie's okay, like it's fun. I don't.
You don't see what all the hubbub is about.
I don't see all the hubbub is about, and so when it goes towards this movie, it's like I don't really know what you guys are kind of looking forward to in this one, or like not. I don't know what you guys are expecting from this one.
How many times have you seen those movies?
2.
Just one sitting or 2 times? Okay, because I would say that I feel the same way about them. At least I did. The first few times I saw them, but I feel like the more and more and more I see them, the more love it's not just respect for the filmmaking that's on display, but the more and more that I see them, the more and more I actually love them, even though, I mean, they're not much more than just enjoyable films at the end of the day, that's just kind of what they are. And so like I've never really, there's not anything too much deeper going on than what's on the surface. It's just that what's on the surface is so good. Yeah, it's quite interesting here. This is what he wrote. And again, Brendan Hodges is somebody who, longtime indie fan, longtime Spielberg fan, and a longtime film fan. I think he has a lot of great takes on movies. I love what Dial of Destiny wants to be: a rousing, elegic reflection of an aging pulp hero and a surprising caution to nostalgia. But man, Mangold's direction is the dullest, ugliest, least kinetic in series history. It's just a huge missed opportunity. The saving grace is how committed Ford is to playing Indiana Jones one last time. He brings a physicality to Indy that grounds the movie in something real, and even affecting as it judges ill-conceived action scenes and plot noise. By the way, that seems to be a pattern. A lot of the people who are writing negative reviews, in particular, were not happy with the action scenes.
Mm.
Dull seems to be a word that's being thrown around a lot. This is Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
If your action scenes are dull, what do you have?
Yeah.
That's a problem. I loved him in this. I'm a James Mangold guy. He brings the thrilling tactility to his movies and plays with genre in smart ways. This is the worst directed action of his career, with none of the kinetic lucidity of Ford v Ferrari. I was shocked at how awkwardly assembled, murky, and uninvolving it is. The Dial of Destiny is often an ugly movie. To recapture the look of Raiders, Mangold pumps a sickly yellow hue. I hate when people do this in movies. Into all the whites of most images. You know, when they just put a yellow filter on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Like a yellow color correction, basically.
Yeah.
Giving the movie what we think of the flat and dull digital look. It looks putrid, worsened by constant and badly implemented CGI. Gee, badly implemented CGI.
Mm-hmm.
Where have I seen that recently?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, man. And yet, what I adore about the Dial of Destiny reveals itself to be about. It's brazen and moving, a fitting end to the character that nearly, but not quite, absolves its sins. It's a weird movie, sad, messy, dull, but sometimes a brilliant movie. And I can't wait for most people to see it. I'll end here since I'm writing it on closer release, but The Dial of Destiny is a fun litmus test. Some say it's safe, while to others it's weird as hell. Somehow it's both. Many will land somewhere different on it, and talking about that kind of movie is often the most fun. So, it's like we've been saying the last few weeks, it's anybody's guess how we're going to feel about this movie.
Mm-hmm.
We're just going to have to wait and see for ourselves. And I'm not going to get a chance to see it until, I'm not going to be here next week, so the following week, most likely. So I guess you guys will or won't see it or share your responses to it. Anyway, let's get into some of the films that we've been seeing. David, I had the chance to see a movie yesterday, as a matter of fact, with Peter. We went to go see a comedy in a theater for the first time in such, I don't know, it's been years. Maybe it's just, to me anyway, I think the last comedy I saw in the theater was Bros last year. And maybe that was the only one. So they don't really come out on the big screen anymore because people, similarly to what's happening with Disney animation, people don't seem to think that it's worth going to the theater anymore because of how much of that flavor they have at streaming. Like comedies, for example. Yes.
No, I was just gonna say, it's a more bigger risk to go into a movie that's specifically comedy when it comes to theaters, and it's always just so weird. I think it's better to watch it at home, mainly because I feel like it's weird when you go into a comedy and it's quiet.
Yeah.
It's just the worst. So, I mean, for a comedy movie, you kind of have to like either hope there's some raving reviews or something, or I don't know.
Also, a lot of the comedies, a lot people still see comedies in theaters, but like that whole genre has kind of been melded into the comic book genre. A lot of comic book films have comedy in them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people get their fix there instead of just like traditional comedies. But you are right. Sometimes it can be quiet, and it was a little quiet when I saw it, but there were also people who were laughing, which also, enhanced the experience for sure. So this one is called No Hard Feelings. It is directed by Gene Stupnitsky. By the way, and I didn't even know this, but no wonder I liked it a lot. Spoiler, I guess, but Gene, this is his second film. And his first film was one of the most underrated movies of the year 2019, and probably one of the more underrated comedies of the last 10 years, Good Boys. Good Boys, if you remember that film, I think you saw it, right?
Yeah.
With Jacob Tremblay. And that one was about a group of young boys on the cusp of becoming teenagers, embarking on an epic quest to fix their broken drone before their parents get home. That's a really enjoyable movie, and I think one of my favorite comedies, because that was actually pretty good. And so his second film here is No Hard Feelings, and this is a different flavor of sorts. And I want to say that before I even get into like the subject matter of what this is, what I was most taken with this film, and sometimes maybe one of the reasons for why comedies in general kind of have flamed out at the box office in terms of how much, how many options there are or lack thereof these days, is because there would be a lot of comedies that would be really overtly mean-spirited and then would force themselves to be at the last minute kind of like hokey and sincere when that really wasn't what was happening at all in the film prior. And it kind of just makes the whole thing fall apart. There are a lot of films out there that may be humorous, that may be enjoyable, and they may even be entertaining. But I think that was a kind of a formula that kind of got overplayed, because by the point you get to the last few minutes, and only then are they trying to do like emotional scenes or something sincere, it doesn't work. And what I appreciated here was it didn't really have anything mean-spirited at all. It was hilarious. It was definitely raunchy. It earned its R rating for sure, but it never felt disingenuous. It also never felt like it was making fun of anybody on too deeply a personal level. I mean, you have these two characters, and they do have things in common in that they both need to grow up in different ways, and they kind of use each other in the form of a relationship, a friendship really, to kind of move on with their lives. On the surface, it may seem like it's making fun of them, but it really isn't. And I find that a rather refreshing take on it, where it's using heart, really, to get some humor out of it. That being said, comedy lives and dies by how funny or not it is. And comedies oftentimes can be hard to really gauge because everybody has a different taste in comedy.
Yeah.
Sometimes, it works for you and sometimes it doesn't. And it doesn't really come down to a matter of quality. It just depends on a matter of preference. If that is the flavor of comedy that you like. And maybe with this one, it's not. But at least for me anyway, this definitely was the kind of feel-good, genuine comedy. I would put this, I think it's a good companion piece with a different comedy that has not necessarily a similar subject material, but kind of like on the periphery. It's also kind of sex-oriented. One that I was trying to get people to watch last year, but nobody listened to me, with Emma Thompson last year, which was called Good Luck to You, Leo Grand. It's, by the way, streaming on Hulu. So if you have Hulu, go ahead and check that one out. But I would say that the film was largely successful, beyond the humor. The humor is one thing, and it definitely delivered there. Maybe there could have been a few more laughs here or there, but I think it was largely successful because you do end up liking your two characters as characters, because they're actual characters, and they grow, and there's that attention to detail, and that, for a studio comedy, especially from the likes of Sony, mind you, it's not something that, we're used to even seeing here. So, this film, this, by the way, also features the return of Jennifer Lawrence. This is her first big film in a long time. Mm-hmm. It also happens to be her first mainstream comedy. And among the many things you can say about this film that are good, her whole thing in this is just kind of a revelation, because, she's an Academy Award-winning actress. She can do the big guns, as they say, but it takes a special kind of talent to be able to do drama and comedy. Mm-hmm. A lot of people can't do comedy, period. But to do both, that's a special tact to have. And I think what you see here, if she just wanted to do stuff like this for the rest of her career, she would be very successful. Mm-hmm. And it makes you realize that maybe she should have leaned into this a lot sooner, because it's not just that she can deliver the lines. It's not just that she, delves into this character. And of course, she can go into any character. But there also happens to be, and this is even harder, there is a physicality that she brings into it that makes the delivery feel completely grounded and real. It's hard to be funny. And it's even harder to have a subgenre called physical comedy, when you're actually using your whole body to, deliver the punchline more so than just the line of paper on the dialogue, One of the best, think about some of the best comedians out there that are good. Like, I think of Zooey Deschanel on her show, where she definitely was great with the physical comedy. You go back all the way back to the beginning of television, which was Lucille Ball, mm-hmm. and you watch those reruns, and you see how still so many decades later, that humor still thrives. It still hits. And what you see with Jennifer Lawrence here is a performance you want to keep coming back to, and she may in fact do more of this. So the film stars her, and then her co-star, who is much younger, but that's the thing, is Andrew Barth Feldman. And I did know of him before, but not too much so. Andrew Barth Feldman, mostly I would say, is known for his work in the theater, as in Broadway. I do want to say he played Dear Evan Hansen after Ben Platt. And he also has music. He's also a musician, obviously, duh. And you can download his stuff on there. And then as far as I'm looking at his film credits, he doesn't really much of anything. So this is his first big role where he's basically co-headlining a film. And of all things, you get to star opposite Jennifer Lawrence. And I did want to say, I read somewhere that he really wasn't going to do this film. In fact, he even delayed starting college because he wanted to be in a movie with Jennifer Lawrence. I would say that's the right call. Yeah. I mean, it's not even maybe to him he was thinking it roll through, but it's like, come on, man, that's a no-brainer. Yeah. Like, you got to do it, especially since he himself is equally as good as she is. Like, what's kind of crazy is, and it's kind of built into the dynamic of what this relationship is supposed to be and what this movie is supposed to be, but you have here a 32-year-old who not getting anywhere in her life. And she's more than happy to just, stay in that comfort zone, work medial jobs, sleep around. And then you also have this 19-year-old who's about to go to college who never really had the opportunity to, overcome his confidence issues and kind of like put himself out there. And so the whole premise here is that the parents kind of get involved and they link those two up together. You can use the expression they hoe him out, or if she hoes herself out. I mean, I think both of those are fair ways to put it, and I think they're both equally true. But the point is, she basically is contracted to form a friendship relationship with him to prepare him for, college. The synopsis that we have here is not a love story. Not a love story. On the brink of losing her childhood home, Maddie, that's Jennifer Lawrence, discovers an intriguing job listing. Wealthy helicopter parents looking for someone to date their introverted 19-year-old son, Percy. I love that his name is Percy. I mean, who's called that? But it really fits because he's a rich kid. Before he leaves for college. To her surprise, Maddie soon discovers the awkward Percy is no sure thing. So it's an interesting premise. I mean, I was like immediately grabbed by the trailers. And I mean, I would not say this is like laugh out loud funny. I wouldn't even say this is must see. But if you're somebody who cares about different kinds of movies being available theatrically, and if you're somebody that wants to see more comedies in theaters, this is your opportunity to show literally any studio that there's an appetite for that. That there's interest in it.
Yeah. And I mean, a movie, I know it's supposed to be a comedy movie, is supposed to make you laugh and everything, but it doesn't necessarily have to all the time. I mentioned this before. Dolomite is My Name, I think that's what's called.
Yes, Eddie Murphy.
I didn't laugh once in that movie. I just
not a single time.
No, I'm serious. Not a single time I didn't laugh.
Not even when they're like making love on the bed and like it's supposed to be like a funny, like a real thing for the movie when they're filming, and it's like there's an earthquake happening and the whole room is falling apart, and it cuts to Wesley Snipes and he's like, I don't know what that is, but that was fucking funny, and everybody laughs. Even that you didn't laugh at?
I mean, I smiled at it. I'm like, okay, I get what you're doing.
God, okay.
But like, that's still a fantastic movie, though. Like, the premise of it is just, a bunch of people wanting to make a movie because they don't see themselves in movies, rarely, and they just kind of went, let's go for it, and they had a good time, and the main guy, he got what he wanted. He got, people to come together, basically, and see themselves and really inspire others, like it's a great premise. And like I said, you don't really have to laugh. I'm also weird when it comes to comedies. I rarely laugh the first time I watch something. I just kind of like, I think I'm always just looking for a good story when it comes to those. And then when I rewatch it, I'll go, oh, why didn't I laugh at this the first time? Like, I'll start laughing a bit more, just kind of like,
interesting.
I don't know what it is with me, but like, still, either way, Dolomite is My Name. Great movie. Maybe you'll laugh at it, maybe you won't, but you'll have a good time. So I'm sure the same thing will be with this one.
No, yeah, for sure. I mean, and there was what was really interesting about this, David, is like, think about this. So the characters, she's 32, he's 19. Of course, there are many moments in the movie where like a lot of attention is brought to their age difference. There's even this sequence where they're at a college party, and oh my God, I don't know if I got like secondhand embarrassment out of it, or I got secondhand pissed off, I guess you could say. But like, I mean, 32 is not old. Jennifer Lawrence looks incredible.
Yeah.
And yet, when she walks into that college party, she's like met with a barrage of like insults, left and right by every single college kid that's there. Like, there was even at one point you hear in the background, is that somebody's mom? I know, right? And I literally wanted to punch one of the kids because, like, dude, sit down. He was saying that she's somebody's mom. And then the little digs here, they're like, ma'am, or aren't you a little old to be here? And then there's a hilarious moment where these two guys, I don't know if they're coming onto her or they're just like making fun of her because she's dirty too or something. And then she basically tells them like to fuck off, but like, like I think one of the common jokes were, are comebacks like, how about you two fuck each other? And then their response was to put like their camera phones on her and accuse her of being homophobic. And then it just, I know. And I was like, Jesus, that generation is so fucked if that's how they react to everything. It's like, oh, okay, here's how I'm going to destroy your life now by just taking it completely out of context, even though that's not at all what she meant. Like, not even a little bit. So it's like, that was so, it honestly, it enraged me to even see those kind of comments. But you know what's also interesting is, again, keep in mind the substantial age difference between the two. Maybe not in years, but definitely in lived and experience. There's a scene in a restaurant, and by the way, this guy is so sheltered. Of course, he becomes smitten for her, and he wants to start like doing things and being in a relationship with her. There's a scene in a restaurant where they're going on their like quote unquote prom. And, of course, Andrew, the actor who plays Percy, is a musician. He sings a song to her. And it kind of reminded me of one of my favorite scenes from As Good as It Gets. That happened to star Helen Hunt and Jack Nicholson, where there was also a substantial age difference there. And I think that was kind of like a Beauty and the Beast kind of a take on that rom-com, basically, where this older jackass, basically Nicholson, was doing his damnness to appeal to a younger woman, Helen Hunt. And there's this scene in a restaurant where I think I remember seeing this film for the first time in Mr. Bishop's class in high school. He would show some movies sometimes. He was a history teacher. And I know there was like a piano playing in the background. And he was like fumbling left and right, trying to really like express what he wanted to say. But when he came to it, he was like, you make me want to be a better man. And then it's just like silence and the music swells up. And that's exactly what these kind of movies are supposed to make you feel. And then in this sequence, he sings a song for her. And damn it, the interesting thing about this film is, for me anyway, like, damn, I ship them both as friends and in a relationship, you know? It's like, well, and that's also kind of an interesting place it puts you in because, like, well, man, maybe these two would be good together. I mean, yeah. I mean, they're both consenting adults. There really isn't any problem with it except for, like, society really, like, looks down on it. But it also isn't, for a lot of reasons, what would be for the best for both of them. So, honestly, it was hilarious. It was also really heartwarming, too. And I think those, to me anyway, those have always been my favorite kind of comedies. So if you have the opportunity to check, and you don't have to go to, I mean, here I am saying that you should go to a theater and see it. Maybe if you have like a day here and there to kill and you want to see something, go ahead and do it. But if you prefer to see it at home, then see it at home. But it's good. Yeah, pay for it. Yeah. That was what I should say.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel personally about it. And I hope anybody who was listening would take it upon themselves to at least search it out and see how they would feel as well. Anyway, with that out of the way with, David, I believe you also had a film that you saw in theaters of the Transformers variety. If I'm not mistaken, this is two things. It is a prequel to the Michael Bay stuff. This film takes place in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And it also happens to be a sequel to the previous Transformers movie, Bumblebee, which starred Haley Steinfeld and John Cena. By the way, to me, that was the only one that I actually really liked. Bumblebee from a few years ago. Because it was just an 80s movie. It was an 80s summer movie with Transformers in it. And it has Haley Steinfeld. She's great.
Mm-hmm.
John Cena was actually pretty good too. So it's like, I really enjoyed the Bumblebee film.
Mm-hmm.
But for whatever reason, all the trailers for this one, the new, I guess, Rise of the Beasts or whatever, I don't know. I feel like every Transformers trailer that has ever been made is the same.
Mm-hmm.
It always has like, let them come or kill them all. And it's like, okay.
This is I mean, what was working against it is that the premise of like the beasts coming in, because which one was it? I think was it Age of Extinction or something like that?
Which are you talking about? That's the fourth movie.
Yeah, I think so. The one with the dinosaurs, basically.
Wasn't the fifth one the one with dinosaurs?
No, I think that's the Fallen Knight or something.
It was the last. I don't even know how I know these freaking titles. I've never even seen these.
Yeah,
I know it's the Last Night, and then there was Age of Extinction.
Yeah,
I didn't even see 4.
Age of Extinction is the one with the dinosaurs, and like people were kind of like, "Oh my god, they're bringing in these Transformers," and like people were.
Weren't they called Dinobots? Is that what they were called?
Yeah, something like that. I'm not a big fan of Transformers. I don't know all the lore and everything.
Similarly to the TMNT stuff, the only time I ever really got into that franchise would be, go figure, the 2003 animated series. That was on Cartoon Network. That was the only time I ever got into that. And then, of course, I think I did see the 2007 Michael Bay movie. That one everybody enjoys.
Mm-hmm.
But then, then they kind of fall off a cliff.
I still prefer the first one. The first Transformers movie out of all of them.
I haven't seen that one in a long time.
I think it's worth rewatching.
I really enjoy Shia LaBeouf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think he's a good actor.
Yeah, he is a good actor. I'm sure that you'll see all the Michael Bay things. It gets kind of annoying after a while, but not
anywhere near the sequels, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's really, really good. The action, I think, is still one of my favorites and all that on that one. With Rise of the Beast, what wasn't working for it is the promise of the beasts coming in, and in Age of Extinction, they had the Dinobots coming in and all that, but that was in the last 10 minutes of the movie, and they just kind of they were there, they charged in, attacked, and then that's it. It's just short-lived, and everyone got really disappointed by it and all that. And so people thought this was going to happen again. Just that they weren't really going to come much. And they didn't in this movie, I should say that. They didn't really do much in this movie, The Beast, but it was still really cool. It was way better than what they did with Age of Extinction. I have seen all the Transformers movies, sadly.
That's a lot of them.
That's a lot of them, I know.
That's a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the first 3 Michael Bay ones, and I also saw Bumblebee, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have the patience for any of the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So that part of it was cool. So overall, did you enjoy yourself with this one?
Yeah, I did. I think this was really fun. What's his name? The main guy,
Optimus Prime?
No. Anthony Ramos, the human of.
Okay.
The human.
I forgot he was even in that movie.
Yeah, he was really fun. I found him really hilarious, and I liked his chemistry with his Transformers, Mirage. Which, did you know the cast for who were playing the Transformers?
No.
So Ron Perlman was Optimus Primal, the gorilla one. Michelle Yeoh was the bird. Peter Dinklage was the villain, Scourge.
What the fuck?
Pete Davidson was Mirage. I didn't even know this, but like he was really good. Pete Davidson was like hilarious in this movie, by the way. Like I don't understand the hate that he gets online, but like I think he's really funny, and he was really good in this movie.
I don't hate the guy. I do feel to an extent he's a bit overexposed. It almost feels like he's like in a lot of things at the same time. But it's funny. Really?
Yeah.
He's in this? I was like, okay.
And then Liza Koshy as she's another Transformer. I can't remember her name, but she's like the only like female Transformer, not a Beast Transformer, like a part of Optimus Prime's team.
Oh, there's only one female Transformer?
Yeah.
No wonder nobody is accusing this one of being woke.
They still are. They still are.
Are you
somehow?
What?
I don't know what it is. I just
what?
But they still accusing, and I don't know how. Like,
I shouldn't be surprised. I don't even know why I'm giving the reaction, but it's like, but
no, there's
nothing there. Just
they're literally trying to look for it now. They even tried doing that with Spider-Verse.
I mean, to be fair, it is woke.
Spider-Verse,
yeah.
But like, just the way their conversations go, where it's just kind of like, yeah, and then there was some, the woke stuff. Like they just kind of like thinking about it, like was this woke or not? But it's super annoying now.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean, it is. I mean,
it's always been
even anything bad.
Yeah.
It's never anything bad. It never will be anything bad. People who complain about it are just the worst. For the record.
Yeah. Where was I going with this? Oh, well, yeah. Anyway, that was the cast, and I was very surprised by that. It was funny. But yeah, it was really good fun. I like the chemistry within them. I like that there was a bit more story, background story, with Optimus. That I feel like we were forgotten in the Michael Bay ones and all that. And I mean, if you like big robot fights and all that, you get one at the very end, and it's all good fun, really.
Now, how would you say? Now, this is a bit of a loaded question, considering that we're living in a time when so many blockbuster films are producing less than adequate, visual effects heavy shots. How would you speak to the quality of visual effects in this movie?
So I think that when it comes to visual effects, I'm not as harsh with that as others are. To me, like if the visual effects, like on a character, if I can see details on them, like from the tiniest movement in like their faces and all that, like let's say just you see this, so like with the beasts, there's hair on them, and like if I can like notice the little strands and the movements seem right, to me that's just good CGI. And then I get when people find it bad, it's because like it's just not really blending well with like when they're standing next to a real person, or it's not blending well with the background. To me, that doesn't really bother me as much. I just want like details within the character, Quantumania is like one that I find bad. I mean,
it's just bad all around. You can't really get away with it.
They, for one thing, they use the darkness way too much to try to rely on good CGI. It doesn't work. And then when it comes to like, what was it, like those gooey characters or those morphed characters and all that, just making like things look weird. I say that's bad just because you're doing it on purpose so that we can, what did I say? Like kind of, what's the word? Fuck. They just...
Well, we know that generally speaking, now I don't know if you're going to go with this, maybe this will give you some time to think about it, but generally speaking, the reason for why you see in a lot of these blockbuster films, visual effect heavy shots that are completely shrouded in darkness and absent of any kind of, coloration at all, is because they're easier, they're faster, and they're cheaper to produce than visual effects shots that have any kind of lighting to them. So, for example, with that one that you were just mentioning with Quantumania, part of the reason for why, from a design standpoint, they made the quantum realm look like ugly diarrhea was because it was easier to produce those shots than something that looked good.
Mm-hmm.
And you see that kind of mentality be executed again and again and again throughout the various franchises that are happening right now.
Mm-hmm. I think what I was trying to say is like they make stuff look weird, gooey, and just kind of crazy world that they try to make, so we can suspend our disbelief and just kind of like go with it. You know, that's part of the reason why they did it, and so that's why I kind of find it bad, is because it's less imagination on their part. Whereas with Rise of the Beast, they really try to focus on the details of the characters and all that, and like try to like even like the way they transform from robot to automobiles and all that. To me, that's just perfectly fine. There's only one moment where I was like, oh, that's bad. But it's only because it's like on an actual person, and so if you watch the movie, you'll know which part I'm talking about. But overall, though, I found this CGI to be really good, and at the very least, it wasn't like I can tell where each character is at. I can see what's going on within the scene and all that, and what they're all doing. You know, one bad thing.
That's good. Mm-hmm. That sounds like that's like bottom of the barrel of expectations, but believe you me, there have been plenty of movies we've seen lately that can't even get that. Mm-hmm. So if they get that, across, in a competent way, unfortunately, that's the best you can ask for these days. Yeah. That's a very good point that you bring up.
Mm-hmm.
Also to mention that this is directed by, I don't know how to say his middle name. Stephen Calpel Jr. This is the same guy that directed Creed 2.
Oh, yeah.
So, interesting to see he's getting work still, and hopefully he continues to get work and improve his skills as a director. Mm-hmm. So, there is that. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to bring up the ending. There's one thing like I do want to spoil, though, because like,
sure,
since no one's really watching this movie.
I mean, yeah, right. Nobody actually saw it. I mean, it just we'll talk about it in a minute, and that's not just alone. This franchise is not alone in that, but your spoiler, since nobody saw it, I found it so funny because it really surprised me, and I absolutely love it. I mean, if we're being real here, more people saw that than The Flash.
I mean,
for real. Yeah, more people saw Transformers.
I want more people to watch this movie just because, like, I'm curious. Because I feel like the way they set it up, it got me excited. So basically, like,
what's
at the end,
setup?
They save the world. Of course they do. Whatever. But the main guy, he in the beginning of the movie, he's looking for a job. At the end, he goes in for an interview, and and then the guy goes in. And right away, you can tell right away that the guy who's like interviewing him is someone from Sector 7. If you remember in the Michael Bay movies, Sector 7 is like the secret government that always like hid all the Transformer stuffs from people and blah, blah, blah. And so that's what I'm thinking the whole time. Like, oh, Sector 7, he's getting hired for them. Cool. It's like, it's connecting to the Michael Bay movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and he hires him. He's like, oh, we want to know everything that you know and all that. And you have certain skills that we can, that we would like to work with and all that, blah, blah, blah. And then he opens like a secret door, like to a secret compound and all that. And he's just kind of like, holy shit, like what the heck did I get myself into? And the card that the interviewer handed him, he looks at it, flips it over, G.I. Joe. Okay, like I said, I'm not the biggest Transformers fan, and I'm definitely not the biggest G.I. Joe fan, but that got me pumped up. I was like, let's go.
Hey, I'm there with you all the same. Not really into Transformers, not really into G.I. Joe, but are you telling me they're legitimately teasing a freaking crossover?
Yeah. Dude, I wouldn't mind a Hasbro cinematic universe, honestly. Like, I don't give a shit.
Hey, that's not a idea to dismiss at hand.
I know.
That's got some actual potential there. Like, I know it sounded dumb as all hell, but part of me, years and years ago, part of me always wanted to see. Remember, Sony particularly had like this scandal where they had so many leaked emails, and one of the things that got out was they were seriously considering doing a crossover franchise of 22 Jump Street with Men in Black.
Mm-hmm.
And part of me always wanted to see how that would look like,
Yeah.
how that would even look, how that would even work.
Especially because Lord and Miller worked on those movies, and like, I feel like they could have done an amazing job with the Men in Black franchise. You know, dude, it could still happen today. You know, I think for sure those actors would want to work together. I even wouldn't mind Chris Hemsworth and what was the other actor's name?
Tessa Thompson.
Yeah. Her,
I forgot they even did a reboot.
I know.
Those in there. Oh my god.
But dude, come on, those two with the Once in 21
with
Jumps.
Channing Tatum and Jonah Hill.
Yeah, with Lord and Miller directing. That is a hit.
Yeah.
God. It'll work. But yeah, anyway, I remember I saw that ending and I looked at my sisters going like, what the fuck? Dude, I'm so down. Like, let's go.
I mean, you have to think that maybe that's the next big gimmick, because you listened to our conversation last week and Peter's main thing was, right now everything's hitting an inflection point and there's only so much that nostalgia is hitting anymore, which is partly, the reason for why so many of these franchises are just not connecting any longer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, especially how we also talking about at the same time how played out already the whole multiverse storylines are.
Mm-hmm.
And with the multiverse storylines is you bring everybody back, but when you do it and it's all said and done, where do you go next?
Yeah.
And so maybe this could be the beginning of a new era.
Mm-hmm.
If they so choose to capitalize that, and if they so choose to, collaborate on it. We're living kind of in a wackadoo time right now. Warner Brothers is it's being dismantled, but they're, experimenting with a lot of different things, replacing writers with AI among them. Also putting HBO content on Netflix, licensing it out, selling off half of their music library for $500 million. I mean, they're looking to get cash wherever they can.
Mm-hmm.
And they seemingly have no qualms about what they get rid of themselves to do it. Like a prostitute, basically. I mean, that's what it is. They're just hoeing themselves out for whatever money they can get. And just so that, as many people speculate, just so David Zaslav can just sell off Warner Brothers into Universal. Because, that's going to be somehow worse, right?
Mm.
Just continuing to just go with merger after merger after merger, thousands of job losses after job losses. It's such a depressing cycle that no one seems to be willing to stop for any kind of reason. But that is an interesting premise. That is an interesting setup, and I do wonder, are they going to follow up with that? That I would like to see.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Just for plain curiosity in and of itself.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, back in the early 2000s, late 90s, there would be a lot of crossovers just in TV shows all the time. Like, I don't know if Hasbro is affiliated with the Power Rangers?
I don't think so.
Well, I don't even know. Paramount has Power Rangers, right? And who has the Teenage Turtles? Is it also Paramount?
Yes.
Well, hey, there's an idea. TMNT and the Power Rangers in live action.
Yeah.
There's something. I mean, if you want to go into the crossover stuff, if that's the next big thing, some of these studios have a couple of franchises that have, I think, in the past, crossed over back and forth.
Mm-hmm. And I like that Power Rangers movie. It was pretty fun.
I never even saw it, actually.
It was fine.
I didn't. I heard nobody say it was bad.
Yeah.
It was like, it was a movie.
Yeah, it was a movie. The only time the audience got noisy, it was when they got their fully powered suits and everything, and they're about to go, and they got into their what is it? The Dinobot, or not the Dinobots, or their Megazords. Haha, I got it. This one I know. They got into the Megazords, and fucking the Power Rangers theme goes on, just like randomly. You just hear that go Power, and it just goes, oh hey, look at that, and they stay quiet again. It's just,
it is interesting how that kind of like went nowhere, huh?
Yeah, it kind of.
You'd think there would have been something to follow it up, and maybe the response was so. It's been a while since I've looked at this. I have to go back and see what the responses were, but they shouldn't. They couldn't have been very kind if they didn't explore it any further.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that, and I don't know if it was in the movie or not. You saw it, I didn't, but what was really kind of inherent with Power Rangers is the camp. I think I saw on Twitter yesterday, one of the clips was from one of the movies, the old 90 movies, from movies that were based off of the show. And it's like, yeah, that show's all camp.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's about as much camp as there is in that as there is in, like, Batman, the what's it called? The Adam West series.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, when you remove that, which I assume they did,
yeah,
for the movie, what are you left with?
Mm-hmm.
Is that still Power Rangers?
I mean, I guess not. I would say the biggest fail in the movie was just mostly in the villain side. Like, they went with, like, I guess, more realistic way of making the monsters look and all that. I don't know how you would call it. But yeah, I think they would have brought in more camp with the villain side and all that. It would have been a lot more fun for sure. Because I didn't mind the costumes in the movie and all that. Yeah, but I really like the characters. I like what they were all going through and all that. Like, it just seemed perfectly fine. I think you could have just explored more if there were more of them, more movies.
Yeah, interesting stuff for sure. And before we move off of it, this will be a good, transition from one to the other. You had mentioned about how not so well the movie had been performing, and I think you can say the exact same thing. In fact, you can say the exact same thing about a lot of the other ones that are performing similarly. What's interesting here is it's not all doom and gloom, because there seems to be a dichotomy that has emerged. I feel like, and I think what the numbers indicate is all of the movies right now that belong to major franchises that are not doing well happen to, be long running, and also happen to have included very recent installments that were not received well from either the fan base or just from general audiences, for them to come back to. For example, you can say the same with the examples of the recent Fast and Furious movie, the recent Transformers movie, and the recent Disney live action movie. It may not even be the movies themselves. I don't think any of those films, by the way, were that particularly good to where they had a conversation or where they added anything particularly new. But more, beside that, they're new installments of franchises that historically in the last decade were easy money makers, but all of a sudden now they're not making that money anymore. In fact, in some of those instances, they're losing money. And I feel like it's pretty evident the reason for why that's happening is because the previous installments just they didn't do all that well. The previous Fast and Furious film was not received well, and I think that's kind of the reason for why this new one wasn't doing well. The previous Disney live-action remakes are never thought of, except for when they're released, so that also brings into this particular situation. And of course, Transformers, it's been going on for a long time. People are tired. People are ready to move on. Mm-hmm. It's inherent with all of this. At the same time, what you are seeing successes in are franchises that had recent good installments. Franchises this year that have been doing well, as far as their new installments are concerned, involve John Wick Chapter 4, Creed 3, Guardians 3, and Spider-Verse 2. All of those belong to franchises, and their most recent installment before this current one were received very well. And I do think that is a bit of an interest, and they're happening at the exact same time, by the way. So that is something very interesting to note of. Let me go ahead and read to you right here. So for example, with Transformers, I know it's already been out for 3 weeks, and its second week it did horribly, dropping almost 70%, which is terrible for any movie, particularly a blockbuster. It barely, I think, got to 20 million in its second weekend, which is, again, talk about just being bad all around. At current estimations for what, and this is a tweet that I screen grabbed from like the 17th of June, so things may even look worse by, these current estimations, but Fast X, Transformers, Rise of the Beasts, and The Flash could all end up grossing lower than $150 million at the domestic box office. Now, again, there's two different things to note. If there is domestic and there is worldwide. Domestic is North American content, the North American continent, I should say, and then worldwide is that and everybody else. And just for North America, for all three of those movies, again, Fast and Furious, Transformers, and The Flash not being able to hit $150 million? That's a disaster. Mm-hmm. That's a fucking disaster, because the budgets of these films are all at least 200 million, 250 million or more, and that's not even counting in the 200 to 300 million it takes to even market these movies. So with that, these three films, again, Fast X, Transformers, and The Flash, adding in also The Little Mermaid, which Little Mermaid has done well domestic, but that's the only place, of course, the only place that does well is the fucking Americans, and everybody else didn't care about this film. So Little Mermaid, Fast X, The Flash, and Transformers are all likely, and this is stunning, they're all likely to lose somewhere between $100 million to $175 million each. Those are 4 big tentpole movies. By the way, so a Transformers movie, a Fast and Furious movie, a DC movie, and a Disney live action movie. With the exception of the DC movies, because they haven't, I'm not even sure ever, but not, well, actually that's not true. One did. At least one installment in all of those franchises at one point in the last 10 years were able to hit $1 billion worldwide. In fact, for some of those franchises, several installments were able to hit $1 billion. And now we're at a point they're losing money. Mm-hmm. These used to be the easiest ones to just greenlit. They come out, they're usually crap, but they still make so much money.
Yeah.
And maybe this is what happens when you make too much crap for so many years in a row.
I mean, it's actually really...
Who would have thunk it?
It's really surprising with Fast X, at least. Because, like, that one, like, the fan base knows what you're in for.
Right? Yeah.
So, where are you? You know? With Little Mermaid...
but also, David, it's this is the 10th movie. I'm like, Jesus, man. Like, at some point, you gotta, like, take a bow and get the fuck out of here.
Well, I thought they were ending. I thought this was like...
But still, it's still the 10th movie.
Yeah.
It's a lot of movies. It's a lot of years.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know. I did want to try and see it, but I never got around to it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it's still in the movies, but I don't know.
It's already on digital video on demand because it's Universal.
Oh, okay. But yeah, and then with Disney, I really don't know what happened. Honestly, I thought it might have been pretty successful. I didn't expect like $1 billion with that one, but yeah. I mean, I guess people are just tired of of the remix on that one. I guess, or I think maybe just people weren't saying good things about it from the very beginning. You know, that probably didn't help. And then what came out? I mean, what came out before that? I know it was Pinocchio before that one, and then.
Well, there were 3 Disney Plus live action remakes: Peter Pan and Wendy, Pinocchio for Robert Zemeckis, and then also Mulan. And then before then, theatrically, well, Mulan, I guess, did play in some theaters, but not really. Before then, it would have been Lion King and Aladdin.
Well, then, yeah, I think because of those, the Mulan, Pinocchio, and Peter Pan and Wendy, which I saw that one. Did we ever talk about it? Peter Pan and Wendy?
I want to know.
Oh.
Maybe Alexis did.
Probably.
I don't remember.
Okay. I
never saw it.
I didn't like it. Just right from the beginning, me and Ella were looking at each other like, oh no, y'all just screwed up a whole bunch of stuff. Are you serious? Like, I'll just say this part. In the beginning, you know, there's always, in all the Peter Pan movies, there's always that scene where Wendy screws up and the dad just gets super pissed off, right? And like, you know, he's yelling at the kids, he drags off Nana and everything and all that. This one, it was just Wendy screws up and the dad's just like, hey, knock it off, and then walks away. And I guess that's the reason why she's okay with leaving. And I'm really not kidding you. It's like, really is like, hey, knock it off. And then that's it. It wasn't like, yo, you kids need to grow up. You know, it's supposed to be freaking intense and all that. And it was just kind of like, oh no, you guys are just screwing this up. It was just, I don't know. I hated it. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so with all that being said, yeah, those are flops, but among all the movies that we just mentioned, the biggest of them all, the most embarrassing of them all, it's funny how the name Barry isn't that word embarrassing. The Flash, man. What to say about this? So, last week when we were talking about the movie, we spent all of 2 minutes, you know, thinking about where it could land. I think we were thinking about it in the $70 to $90 million range for an opening weekend. It came nowhere close to that. This film's performance really is kind of, if you've been looking back at the long history of the DCEU, again, in retrospect, it's not much of a surprise, but it really does kind of highlight how far the mighty have fallen. The DC brand, maybe in some ways, has been irreparably damaged by the stunning low quality of these films in the DCEU, which have been going on for 10 years now, from 2013 to 2023. And you can only ever get to bottom of the barrel numbers like these after a decade of just floundering, meandering, flopping, incompetence, and more incompetence after that. In 3 days, the Flash film that had been highly hyped, that had been highly publicized, that had been highly pushed by the studio executives as the second coming of Christ, that even involved several high-profile celebrities literally lending their endorsement to it, which also, by the way, after employing a strategy of fan screenings for weeks on end, after debuting it at CinemaCon, mind you, to show how much faith they had in the film. By the way, after already having made the decision to hire that film's director, Andy Muschietti, to direct Batman the Brave and the Bold for the upcoming Gunn DC verse, after all of that, after all of those, and after dumping so much money into not just marketing a film whose star can't really be promoting anything, which that in and of itself is a whole different investment. Just trying to rehabilitate him and getting him stable enough to make one appearance at the premiere, say one little speech, and then never to be heard from again. The idea to even release this after just the never-ending crime spree and controversies that the star Ezra Miller was involved with, you'd think that at the end of the day, at the very least... Oh, I didn't even mention that this also, the trailers, which I would say were quite good, also heavily featured the return of Michael Keaton's Batman. I mean, hello. This movie had so much going for it. This movie had so much built around it and had so much investment in it. And honestly, because they were putting themselves to the ringer of even bothering to hold, to prop up Ezra Miller up with whatever they had, you at the very least, after all of that, would be forgiven to, I don't know, have some kind of expectation that you were in for something good.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to the quality in a bit, but these numbers don't suggest that. And I mean, first of all, it got hit with a B cinema score. Uh-oh. That, for a blockbuster film, a B cinema score is like an F or a D. That's not very good. That means that the audience just was not connecting with the film. And cinema score is the most reliable indicator. They're the most reliable exit polls that we have as people are walking away from the movie. Then in 3 days only, it barely made half of what Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was able to do in 3 days back in February. A DC film with Michael Keaton's Batman coming back was able to do half of what the third Ant-Man movie did in 3 days. The Flash came in at $55.1 million. Which also, hilariously enough, broke a several week streak of films opening to at least $60 million and up. So there, it even has that going against it. In 3 days, it made $55.1 million. Right now, it has been 7 days. You know how much more it's made since those 3 days? It's only gone up in 7 days to $72 million. In 1 week, in 7 days, this film has only grossed $72 million at the domestic box office. Remember how a few minutes ago, I read a tweet that suggested that it would be a struggle, a big struggle at that, for Flash to come anywhere close to 150 million? It's not getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it may even be a struggle hitting 100 million. I mean, it is unfathomable.
Mm-hmm.
Genuinely. How how pathetic this performance is. To say it's a flop, to say it's a bomb, doesn't do it justice. Not anywhere near. Because it's made so little money that at one point this week, I think it was on Wednesday, it was overtaken as the number one movie that sold the most tickets that day by Across the Spider-Verse. It's made so little money that, and I believe I shared this to the chat just a few hours ago, and Luis Fernando has been one of the reporters covering this mostly. The Flash finished its first full week after grossing only $2.8 million on Thursday. It only made $2 million yesterday. It's only hit 72, this is the exact number right now, $72.4 million in the US after 7 days. By the way, the original projection was that it would only take 3 days to hit that number. It took 7 days to hit that number. And somebody asked him, is it possible that The Flash is able to make $20 million in its second weekend? And the response was, I don't think so. I'm already expecting it to come under $17 million. Okay, that has to be a 70% plunge, right? Because if you start off your first week at 55.1 and then you drop to only make 17 million week 2, and then making things worse, could even end in 4th place behind No Hard Feelings, what at this point won't be as shocking to me anymore, but would be unthinkable to me if someone had asked me a week ago if I could see that happening this weekend. And by the way, it started off bad and is only getting worse. I feel like that what this suggests is, yeah, the movie is not connecting, the movie isn't great, and for the little people that went to go see it, there it is, and it's not getting that word of mouth. And honestly, if you skip the film and you're seeing these results, you feel pretty good about yourself and not wasting your time. That's how you feel, honestly, when you see these kind of headlines come out. But more to the point, most people decided, nah, I'm good. You're more than your DCEU universe is dead. It's been dead for a long time, but like your DC franchise is like it's done.
Yeah.
It's done. What this suggests is literally nobody cared.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a multiversal film that had Michael Keaton's Batman and nobody gave a flying fuck. Which hilariously, for the people who did see the film, and I even I shared a clip with you by some of the people who reviewed the film, and this made me laugh. I think this was on the Geek Buddies podcast, and this response was hilarious to me because I think a lot of people who saw the film, I think, would feel the same way.
I mean, I will say, we were just talking about this before we hopped on the live chat. Shannon and I saw it. So Shannon and I both saw it once separately, but we saw it together on Friday night. Saw it Friday night in Los Angeles at the Grove. Packed theater. Sold out. Totally packed. You could have heard a pin drop when that movie ended. Wow. And not in a good way. That is not great. That is not great.
That is surprising, man. Wow.
Yeah. It was the audience version of a shrug and a ho-hum.
And that's surprising to hear them say that it was a crowded theater. My theater was empty.
Yeah, mine too. A little bit.
And by the way, this was like, Thursday night previews? This is supposed to be the day where it should be packed. It wasn't. So... Anywho, while I have it, I'll just play some more stuff here that I thought was interesting while you, David, prepare your thoughts for this movie.
Across the Spider-Verse. Spider-Verse had Miles Morales being like, no, I don't have to let my loved ones die just because it's a rule of comic book tropes or whatever, like just because it's a meta-narrative. Right. I want to try and be a superheroic person and try to like change, like you trying to tell me how to live my life, I'm gonna do my own thing. That's Miles' whole storyline. The Flash ends with a bunch of older guys who made this movie and Michael Keaton and, you know, and the rules of the universe kind of telling young Barry Allen, like, you can't. You have to let your mom die. And Barry is like, yeah. And it's not great. But then my other biggest issue with the film is the sort of writing and characterization of the character of Barry Allen himself. Barry is a frustrating character for me. He comes across as this youthful character. I think they may have been writing Barry to sort of be an example of maybe somebody who's on the autism spectrum, but I don't have a lot of personal knowledge or familiarity with that aspect of human existence, but I felt as though it was like, but did the person writing this have that experience? And I also want to say, I love the writer, Christina Hodson, screenwriter. She wrote Bumblebee, which I think is fantastic. She wrote Birds of Prey, which I think is fantastic. I don't know, we also know this movie has a troubled past and history of production where different writers were coming in, different directors, different, you know, so there's many cooks over many years in this kitchen. So I'm not going to pin the blame on one specific person. It's not the director, it's not the writer, it's not a producer. I think it's all of this. I think it's even them looking at some of the comic book source material. I'm not in love with the storyline Flashpoint as well. With that, I know that's a controversial thing. People love that comic. So I want to get this all out of the way right now so that you guys can fix this and make it okay. But I didn't love the Barry Allen character. I thought he was a little bit too, almost like Joey Tribbiani and Friends, too dumb to be real. Where I'm like, you're too dumb. There's no way you are like a smart young professional with your job in like forensics, whatever, science, but like you lack some of these specific skills. But again, I know but they're trying to maybe do somebody who's on the spectrum and might not have specific social skills. And I'm like, okay, but that did not seem authentic to me. And it did not seem like I just couldn't buy Barry Allen when it was supposed to be a mid to late 20s professional. Then we meet the 18-year-old Barry Allen or the younger Barry.
Young Barry,
and even that was like, this is like...
It's like young Sheldon.
This is like levels of Shazam where I'm like, I don't believe that the writing for any of these kids is real. Do you know what I'm saying? It feels like adults writing young people, and I'm like...
And then from the Big Picture Podcast?
They weren't that good in the movie.
This is what I said to Amanda as we walked out. I thought they were annoying.
They weren't that good in the movie, and...
You don't do it right, it can be quite grating.
Yeah.
And I found the performance quite grating. And so it was very hard to just connect to the movie emotionally, because when you're with Michael Keaton's Batman or when you're with Sasha Calle's Supergirl, I actually just felt more interested in where those stories could or should have gone. And by the end of...
Okay. There's a lot of issues with the film, but I think this is a big one, right? Like, if you can't connect with your character, your movie doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't really get into that too much. I know Peter touched on it a little bit, but as I mentioned before we even started recording, we were pretty kind of like, we were so uninterested. Like, I just want to reiterate, David. Maybe I can say it better now that I'm not so like clogged up my freaking nostrils, but like, I was basically waiting for the whole movie for Michael Keaton to show up.
Yeah.
Because I felt like, right? I mean, for one, but like, the reason why I was doing that was because I had some hope that when that would happen, things would like roar to life. You know, not just that things would pick up, but that all of the stuff that was good that we've been hearing for months would come to fruition because of that. And the sad part about it is that I want to say like 20 minutes after he finally came on, and this was the sequence where they're flying to Russia to break out Sasha Calle, the Supergirl. I don't even remember that scene because I, honest to God, checked out. I'm not kidding you. I think that was the point where it's like, wow, I'm bummed that this is not getting better, and I thought this might get better, and it's not getting any better. And even though you could hear the Danny Elfman Batman theme blaring, and there's some cool looking stuff that's happening on screen, I'm sorry, but like, I don't remember what happened. I don't have a visual memory of seeing the Flash's breakout / Akaye, because even though my eyeballs were like literally at the screen, I spaced out completely because I was in that moment just like, wow, I can't believe how dull this movie is. Like, yeah, I've seen worse movies. And I've seen films that have a lot more infuriating things, but that's what I was saying when I said in my review last week is it would be saying a lot if this film made me feel anything, much less anger, you know, which it didn't. What it did make me feel was just bummed out completely and disappointed and just like also just kind of stunned too, because I legitimately wanted this film to be good. Like, I legitimately wanted this film to do well. Like, I'm tired. First of all, I'm tired of comic book films that aren't good, because most of them are just not good anymore. Mm-hmm. The fact that we had Across the Spider-Verse and Guardians 3 back to back is a miracle in and of itself. But that should not let us forget that more often than not now, these movies are just not that good. But especially with DC, I'm just like, man, I'm tired of walking in to a DC movie and it not being very good. Mm-hmm. And then this is what happens.
Yeah. No, yeah. It was pretty disappointing. I mean, right from the beginning, I was with you. Like, I wanted this. At the very least, I wanted this movie to be fun. You know, I did find Ezra Miller to be funny in the Justice League movies. I thought maybe he can bring that here. And I mean, there were some moments where I laughed and all that. But but nothing could just hold up this movie. You know, just his performance alone wasn't good enough and all that, and all that shit CGI really was so distracting, especially when the two Ezras show up and you're just like, oh my god, you really just I would have rather the CG when there were two Ezras in the scene, I would have legit taken, like, if you saw like a line in the middle of the screen where like the camera splits them up and all that, I would have taken that more than the fucking CGI. You know.
So it was that bad. Okay. I'll be honest. Of all the CGI that was on display, that to me seemed the least offensive. There was a lot of other moments that made me just like, wow, that's certainly a choice, and I can't believe it actually was. That defense of it, oh, it was intentionally bad. But what the fuck was that? But like, I maybe I don't want to see this movie again. But I guess I should look more carefully at how that was, because of all the things that were off-putting about it, that one stuck out the least to me. But it could be that I was just like blocking it out because the effect is one thing, but maybe I wasn't noticing the effect because I just couldn't believe how hard of a miss it was as far as the dynamic that those two were concerned. I mean, the thing is, the lead here isn't all that interesting here. The lead here isn't all that endearing, and part of what makes him hard to connect to is because you're not really sure how he's playing the character. You don't really know this character, first of all. You don't really know that much about him. He's been in several films, but you don't know that much about him. But you also just don't really get him. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of like weird idiosyncrasies that he has in his mannerisms, in the way that he speaks, and you're not ever sure if he's playing this character as if he's supposed to be on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. It never is talked about, it's never addressed, and then all that does is draw more attention to it, and it draws more confusion to it. If all you ever draw is confusion and just not really sure what to do with your lead character, then how are you going to like this movie? Especially when so much of this movie is just them. Mm-hmm. If you don't like this character, you're not going to like this movie, period.
Yeah. Also about that whole CGI was meant to look this way and all that blah, blah, blah. I'm sorry, that's bullshit right there. What I kept thinking about in those scenes where the time travel was happening, I kept thinking of Doctor Strange, where that one had like trippy as like CGI scenes going on, but they looked far better than
That looked good.
yeah, and that looked great. And so
that looked coherent.
Yeah.
That whole, it was a choice of a design where, you know, where Barry would initiate a sequence with him running fast and going back in time, and all around him you'd see like, I'm sorry, that looked ugly to me. All these like these faces like going around in a circle. I guess it was some kind of DC Comics thing that they lifted from the source material, but it looked ugly to me.
Yeah.
Especially since like we spent a lot of time in there too.
Mm-hmm.
When he keeps initiating those like time travel sequences, like it looks ugly.
Mm-hmm. And then it just like it leads into the whole multiverse clashing together. And you got that whole, you know, cameo scene going on and everything. And like, look, nostalgia works on me, okay? Like that scene in Mandalorian where Luke comes out and all that, like that worked for me. I don't like the scene because of what it did, but it works. And this one too, it worked for me. Sorry, just saying.
A lot of
yeah, you know.
Yeah,
and I was like, oh hey, like you got this and this, but like. Still though, that is fucking ugly, and I'm not just talking about the CGI. Like the fact that you're using CGI to bring Nick Cage,
the dead, back to life. The dead. First of all, the dead.
But also like Nick Cage, it's just like, why couldn't you just get him? Why couldn't you put that effort into getting him in? You know, and if he wasn't going to come in, don't do it at all. And there's other Supermen here going on. Grant Gustin, I know for sure he would have been on this. Okay, so why couldn't he come out?
You know, it would have been interesting if you literally had to have two Barry Allens lead the film. Why not have had Grant Gustin co-lead the movie? Wouldn't that have been an interesting dynamic, Grant Gustin and Ezra Miller?
It would have been interesting, but Grant Gustin would have stolen the show.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, he was a better Flash. I did see a little bit of the show. I mean, I remember, I think I saw the second season of The Flash, which I think were among the better of the seasons of The Flash. But I remember watching that show, and Grant Gustin was a good Barry Allen. I liked that character. At least I could say I liked him.
Yeah.
You know? But you're right, though. He would have stolen the show.
Yeah, he would have stolen the show. And so, yeah, it's gross that we just use the CGI.
Can you believe that of all the cameos, Grant Gustin wasn't one of them?
I know, especially because Ezra Miller came out in CW. Did you know
that? Yeah, I saw that.
So it's
so you think that they would like reciprocate that on the theatrical level anyway?
Yeah.
I mean, he definitely had more business being in here than anything else. I mean, we're living in a time where, of all things, Spectacular Spider-Man gets called out and gets a moment to shine in Across the Spider-Verse. Even just a brief moment, but it's something, you know, to the fans and everything.
Especially though that the show ended, like I think right before the movie came out, and it would have been actually would have been pretty cool if he just came out in the movie. It's like, hey, we get one more little. I mean, I gotta be honest. I was watching the last season of The Flash. It's not good.
I mean,
it's really really bad.
It is a 9th season of a superhero show. Yeah. I doubt that it would be any good.
And
on principle alone, you know.
Still though, I think it would have been cool that like his last efforts as a Flash would have been in this movie, even though this movie is also bad, but like still.
Yeah, there were moments where it was okay, but for the most part, Barry and Barry together is just grating. Like you can't escape it. Especially with that, whatever that laugh was. When I heard it once, I was like, I closed my eyes and I'm like, oh no, they're going to do this the whole time, aren't they? And they did. It's also just like, there's a couple of things here that I think are just so ill-conceived. And I think it really misunderstands. Well, first of all, this film misunderstands a lot of things, but it also, from a deep standpoint, everybody here really just doesn't seem to register on any level that the Zack Snyder characters have never been popular.
Mm-hmm.
They're very niche. Niche is not the same thing for popular. It means a small segment of people really passionately like the Snyder stuff, but the Snyder stuff has been a miserable failure. The Snyder characters have been have been singularly responsible for the disastrous ruin that the universe and the brand finds itself in. You know? And I think Double Toast had pointed this out. Martin and Corey, I think they pointed this out. If there was ever going to be like a final curtain call for Henry Cavill's Superman, wouldn't this have been it?
Mm-hmm.
Why would you waste anybody's time giving the audience an alternate version to a character that is not popular? I'm sorry to say, and I can't believe this is going to be a controversial thing to say because it's pretty evident. But Henry Cavill's portrayal as Superman, first of all, the movies aren't great. They're not even good. But second of all, his portrayal of Superman has always just been like, Zack Snyder fucked that characterization. And so he has that stink with him. So if you don't care about that version of Superman, why would you care about a different version of Superman? And it being Supergirl. It's like, especially when she has nothing to do in this movie. Yeah. She's just there and then she dies. So for how little that she's in here, why not have just used the opportunity to give the Henry Cavill people, appease them a little bit to shut the fuck up and give them a final hurrah for them, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But especially since like other Superman are in this movie, but not this Superman. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what are these people thinking? So but also what I was going for is, why would you build the climax of this film around the events of Man of Steel when Man of Steel is not a popular movie? That's like if No Way Home, which there are a lot of similarities between this and No Way Home, and No Way Home is a much better movie. Mm-hmm. Even though I don't really like No Way Home all that much, it is a much better film than this.
Yeah.
That's like if No Way Home had decided to center, let's say No Way Home ended up going into a multiverse, and it centered its third act around the climax of The Incredible Hulk. No one remembers that. No one cares about that. It came and it went, and that was that. So why would you choose to bring back, of all things, General Zod? Why would you choose to put a Supergirl in here? There were many other options, certainly more popular. You could have given Gal Gadot a final run as Wonder Woman. You could have brought back Momoa. Like, there are other more interesting options than a Supergirl or a General Zod. It just kind of like, and then you also decide you bring back Michael Keaton's Batman, and the thing that's most offensive about that is you bring back the actor that played a character, but you leave behind the flavor. You leave behind the style that was the Burtonverse. It would have been nice if what I thought they were going to do originally was, Ezra Miller ends up in the Tim Burton multiverse. Mm-hmm. And it would like look and feel and sound like that, but it wasn't. It was just his same old reality, but it just happened to include Michael Keaton's Batman, but with none of the Tim Burtonisms involved. And Michael Keaton is great. Mm-hmm. I feel like even the action scenes that he does, I'm like, that's the best part of this movie, honestly.
Yeah, for sure.
That easily the best part, maybe the only reason to see this is for that. But even with all of that, man, I couldn't be bothered to care. I couldn't be bothered. Even there's some choices they make where they unceremoniously just kill off Michael Keaton and Sasha Calle, and that, I guess that's that. right?
Yeah.
And then I guess the solution was, oh, we can't win.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And it sucks when like you look at the comic book and there's just like so many things that just were better for that from that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're just kind of like, and I mean, I don't need like a 1-to-1 exactly like the comics, but like, you know, the reason why Flash like fixes everything, it's because literally the world is like about to get destroyed in that moment where he's about to go back, you know? Whereas with this one, it's just kind of like, oh, they're dying, no, and it's just kind of like, but like you can tell though that like, just a couple of little fixes and him more involved can actually like save the world. You know, it's just kind of like I didn't feel convinced that like he had no choice, or like he was running out of options here. Like there was just, it's always going to end up being the same. It's like no, you got options, come on, seriously.
Mm-hmm. Whereas
Whereas in the comics, like no, he was like, there's no way he could have been everywhere all at once, and a whole bunch of people were about to die, and then everyone was about to die, and so like he had to fucking go back in time. And so yeah, it's just, I mean, that's just the one thing that kind of sucks about it and all that.
I mean, I just feel like there are so many other more interesting, even the cameos themselves felt very, I mean, man, there's a lot of things you can say about those cameos. I mean, there's a lot of words you can use for sure. But I guess to me, more than anything, they just were so, they were so useless.
Mm-hmm.
They were so pointless. The sequence where they come out of nowhere and the whole movie, again, they keep doing this, particularly in these films, the DC movies, but the whole movie just fucking stops to show like these different versions of these characters. And for what? What do? They just stand and watch.
Yeah.
Well, you said you liked it. You said it made you feel something. Help me understand what it made you feel watching them. I mean, you also said that they were ugly, right?
No, yeah. Just like I found it ugly. It's gross that they use CGI to like make, like that was the effort that they tried to put into these cameos and all that. Like I said, like why bother using CGI on a Nicolas Cage cameo instead of making the effort of getting him, putting on that costume and like shooting something. Like I really wouldn't have minded if he was just like standing there and all that, but still, and just kind of like them using CGI just makes it look lazy in what they were trying to do. And I mean, it's just like, you know, yeah, it worked for me just because, but like I'm just that easily entertained and all. That's really it. But like I could still see through like what they were trying to do, and just it's gross, really. Mm-hmm. And I can't really say why it got me, why it made me feel anything, but
well, it just worked on you.
Yeah, it just worked on me.
Dear God, I was just looking at some of the numbers here, and it looks like the Flash might have a hard time even matching the first Shazam movie. I think from a world. Oh no, not a worldwide, for a domestic gross. I mean, look, this movie, it was what it was. There's a lot of puzzling decisions. Like even the choice to end it with, oh, I guess it was kind of funny and weird. But George Clooney,
that
of
was
all
funny.
people,
I love that.
I mean, I'll say this, that caught me by surprise.
Yeah.
I was like, what the fuck? I was so sure they were like, they're gonna bring Keaton back, and I think at one point they were. There are scenes that they shot, and Keaton was supposed to be the new Batman, but then they canned Batgirl and they changed everything around, and so they're like, I don't know, just bring in Clooney.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter anyway. This is not gonna make the continuity is done.
Yeah.
It's over. It's dead. We're not. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess the Peacemaker characters are going to transition in some way, but to me, the Peacemaker and Suicide Squad characters, I've never really connected that to the DCEU. For one, because it's good, but for two, it's just so far removed. Yes, Aquaman and the Flash do make cameos there, like very briefly on Peacemaker, and yeah, they mentioned the Justice League, but it's like, to me, it's not necessarily the same thing. I can remove it, but other people are not. I guess to me, one of the things that I'm really upset with this whole ordeal is I hate it when people make some good points about James Gunn maybe needing to be a little bit more restrained. If I was James Gunn, for just a starter, I would have insisted to David Zaslav, look, there's a whole year of movies coming out ahead that are not going to be doing very well. Why are you going to announce a new DC studio head when that DC studio head is going to be obviously unfairly blamed for the performance of those films, even though he had nothing to do with it? I would have insisted to Zaslav, you know what? If you want to announce a new DC head, go ahead and announce somebody you're going to fire anyway. And I think the original plan was to keep Walter Hamada around so they can fire him for when these films bombed. You got to be thinking about this. Like, okay, did the people at Warner Brothers, were they doing all this hyping because they knew? Or are they just genuinely surprised how bad it is? And I have to think maybe it's a mixture of both, but maybe it's more, no, on some level they believed in this because look how much money they still kept putting into it to promote it and everything. And then for it to end up this way, it's just a horrible disaster. But what I more mean is, okay, things like, did Gunn really have to put himself out there?
I know.
And say that this film was good and that he loved it? Like, that doesn't... And then also to hire the guy that directed this, Andy Muschietti, to do the Batman movie? That's not good.
Well, I mean, for Gunn, like, I don't think he really had a choice. He had to promote this movie, you know, that's
true.
Like, he just said he didn't have a choice. But, like, there's a difference, though, in saying, like, yeah, go watch this movie. You know, you'll have a fun time versus... this is the greatest superhero movie in cinema, you know? It's just like, calm the fuck down, my guy. Like, yeah. Seriously?
Yeah.
And then with the director, did he also write the movie or no?
Well, no. Andy Muschietti did not write this movie.
Okay.
And even the woman who is credited, I believe Hector Navarro, I played the clip earlier a few minutes ago, he had mentioned the name, the writer who wrote Birds of Prey and Transformers, the Bumblebee movie. Grace Randolph sources have come out and said that no, she didn't write this movie. A lot of people wrote this movie over fucking a period of 10 years. It just so happens that she's the only one credited officially, but a lot of writers came in here and went away.
Okay, then I'm okay with him directing the Batman movie because all the Batman scenes with Keaton and with Affleck, I thought they were really cool. The action scenes, at least, I thought they looked really cool.
I think you can make a reasonable argument that because the Flash was so fucked, Andy Muschietti is the least of the problems. But he himself has made comments, and you could also say that maybe he doesn't have much of a choice because of how Zaslav is, but he's also made some comments that have been pretty buffoonish, like the whole thing of defending the look of the VFX. Oh, it's supposed to be ugly. Again, it's not inspiring confidence here when they go out and they put themselves out there like that. And so I'm not saying that it's going to be bad, but it dampens a little bit of the excitement because he is attached to this movie and this movie isn't doing very well. But also Gunn didn't have to put himself out there like that. He could have promoted it like simple. He didn't have to go out and say it was one of the best superhero films of all time. And also he didn't have to, I don't even know why at one point he said that Blue Beetle is supposed to be in the continuity of his universe going like, I'm sorry, nobody cares about Blue Beetle, but you know what? I could have told you the day they greenlit a Blue Beetle movie. that's been part of the problem with the Hamada. Walter Hamada, I think, had some interesting ideas for what he wanted for the DCEU. It's just that the execution was just very, it was just the wrong approach. Like, part of what I always struggled with the DCEU was, why were they greenlighting films to characters, secondary, tertiary characters, when they can't even get their main characters right? Like, when you have, Zack Snyder's so fucked over Batman and Superman that they had to go greenlight movies like Birds of Prey or Shazam or Blue Beetle, and some of those worked out well, but like, who cares about a Blue Beetle movie?
Mm-hmm.
And it's coming out in August, by the way. How bad is that going to do?
I mean,
how bad is that? I mean, because look, this is somebody said it. Shazam 2019. That was the last time a DCEU film was profitable. All of the ones that have come out since, The Suicide Squad, Black Adam, Shazam: Fury of the Gods. I think there's one of them that I'm missing. And then now The Flash. They're just losing money.
Mm-hmm.
They're literally losing money on every single DCEU film. You have to wonder, how much longer can it go on like this? I mean, and you have to also wonder, how bad is this performance of the Flash? What does this mean for how Blue Beetle and Aquaman are going to do? I don't think Blue Beetle is going to do well at all.
Mm-hmm.
I think Aquaman has a better chance because a lot of people really enjoyed the first Aquaman, and Momoa. He's a draw.
Yeah.
So I think Momoa is a bigger star than Ezra Miller for sure. So there has to be something they're going for. And also James Wan came back to direct that movie. So I would not dismiss Aquaman 2. But at the same time, I do want to say, I think it plays in a lot into the online conversation that, you know, these films are not going to matter as much with the James Gunn verse. But at the same time, people should not be using that as the reason for why these films are not doing well. Maybe it's contributing to it, but the reason these films are not doing well is because they've never been doing well. Mm-hmm. All of this can be traced back to how bad of a movie BVS is.
Yeah.
All of this goes back to that. And you can make the argument that they had so many opportunities in years past to just gut everything and start all over again. Yeah. I for one think the opportunity to do that was back in 2017 when their Justice League, the Joss Whedon Justice League movie came out. It only made $95 million in its opening weekend, and it lost. It got its ass kicked by the third Thor movie. A Justice League movie, which came out the same month, got its ass kicked by the third Thor movie. That should have been the point of no return. Yeah. That should have been the point where, you know what? Even if you want to bring Gal Gadot, whatever, but dump the rest.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I remember saying, like, just keep Gal Gadot, bring in Batgirl, and I can remember some other female superhero, and just do an all-female superhero or something like that. That's literally what I said, and just like, hopefully they can fix something, but they never did anything like that, and just it all went to shit after that. And yeah, and honestly, what didn't help though, those fucking Snyder fans, where they were just like,
they're the worst.
They just kept pining over Snyder's cut like over and over, and just I feel like all the movies just didn't stand a chance after that, you know.
Yeah, and Peter also makes good points. Is like, well, there is Wonder Woman, but there also was Aquaman, because the year after Justice League, which was in 2018, like literally a year after that same fall winter, or so Justice League was 2017. The next year was 2018, and in that winter, Aquaman came out and it made $1 billion. So when that happens, they're like, well, what's going on here? Like, but that also was strange, right? Like, how and also funny.
Mhm.
The only DCEU movie to make $1 billion is Aquaman.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it was like the biggest reason, but just the biggest standout, I guess you could say, of Aquaman is that it was really honing in on its comics like accuracy and all that, you know? Because Peter mentioned this, is that he found it hilarious when the trailer came out and you see Momoa in the orange shirt and like green gloves and everything, and he made like I literally laughed out loud when he said this, but like he found it hilarious that Snyder's Aquaman was all like he's shirtless, you see his tats and everything, and just kind of like looks all menacing and everything. But then James Wan comes out and it's just like comic book accurate orange flashy suit and all that. It's just
I mean, you could just tell the difference in creativity, but it's like, again, so many mistakes were made. So many mistakes. Like, you know what I do mourn, though, is somewhere in there existed the opportunity to have at least one Ben Affleck directed Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I still wish. Even though, I mean, it ended up working out many years later with Matt Reeves. Because to me, that Matt Reeves Batman film is the best Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't even think it comes close.
Yeah.
As far as Batman is concerned. But, geez, man. It's been 10 years of this at this point. And it's like, when are they going to get it together? I do feel bad for Gunn that he has to, like, take the punches for projects that he had no involvement in.
Yeah.
I do think it's unfair that people are already calling for him to be replaced when he hasn't even done anything.
Yeah.
He hasn't even made anything yet. Like, you can't judge anything until Superman Legacy comes out in July 2025. And I feel like everybody is at the same mind. Like, maybe James legitimately thought that Flash was good. Hey, there's a difference. Everybody has a different taste in movies, right? Maybe he actually drank the Kool-Aid there. But that should not make us forget what a terrific filmmaker he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like Bob Chipman said, I saw a video before we even came on this podcast. Guardians 3 is fucking great. That alone should get you excited for Superman Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what more needed to be said after that.
Yeah.
By the way, did Alexis have any thoughts? I know you saw. Didn't you see it with your dad and with Alexis?
Yeah.
Did they have anything to say about the movie?
I think they had the same thoughts as me. Just, there were some funny parts. It happened.
Yeah. I know that people were sharing their like ranked lists. I don't know. Like, to me, there's not much to rank. I would say the only ones I care about: number 1, Peacemaker; number 2, The Suicide Squad; number 3, Shazam! Fury of the Gods; number 4, Shazam; number 5, Aquaman. The rest, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Not that the rest are shit. The rest, I don't give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
But a good number of them are shit. Like, I still think, dude, you still can't. I feel like we just talked about how Guardians 3 and Across the Spider-Verse has to be a historic, like, back-to-back, like, all-time of how great it is. I think it's the exact inverse of how awful it was to have BVS and Suicide Squad come out back-to-back. Because that was, I mean, do you remember when those came BVS and Suicide Squad back-to-back in the same year?
Nah, not really.
No, yeah, they're pretty forgettable movies.
Yeah.
But they're still, I think, to me, some of the worst ones made.
Yeah.
So, largely for why we're in this mess in the first place. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. And by the way, all of this should not distract from all the problems happening at Marvel Studios. There's a big show happening on Disney Plus, and no one's talking about it.
I was literally trying to remember. We had one more topic. I can't remember what it was.
Well, I mean, I can't imagine it's going to take up any time at all. David, please. I'm curious to hear what, if anything, you have to say about Secret Invasion.
I mean, there's not really much to say. Is they just set up some things. I guess they're kind of interesting. I'll keep watching. I was just kind of like, I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it, really, honestly. Just like there's some scenes that feel like they don't blend well. Like one scene to the next just kind of feels off.
Keep in mind, of course, that this show was completely reshot.
That's probably it.
I mean, it was rewritten and reshot. Don't forget that originally they filmed this from August 2021 to December 2021. We're now in 2023. So all last year, they hired new writers, they wrote the show over again, and they shot the show over again. So that probably is what's contributing to the experience that is Secret Invasion.
Maybe.
It's just it's so abysmal and hilarious and pathetic all at once that Kevin Feige legitimately thought this is what the comic book storyline Secret Invasion is owed.
Mm.
You basically take an Avengers level storyline and you diminish it to this.
Yeah. And I'm already not liking like the reason why some Skrulls are evil.
Oh, great. Because they also fucked that up too.
Yeah.
Thanks to Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I didn't mind like if like some,
The switcheroo.
Yeah, I wouldn't have minded that. I just don't like the reason, and it's because in the 30 years that they've been with Nick Fury and Captain Marvel, they still never found them a planet to live on peacefully.
That's shit.
Yeah.
Wait, let's back that up. That is awful.
Yeah.
The Captain Marvel movie took place in 1995. In the continuity of this MCU, they're in 2025. What's that, like 30 years after?
Yeah.
They couldn't find another planet, even when Captain Marvel, the only time she ever shows up is, there are a lot of planets out there and they don't have you guys. What do you mean they never found a planet for them?
Yeah.
In the span of 3 decades.
Mm-hmm.
That come on. You see, that the longer the MCU exists, the more kinds of these really pathetic excuses for reasonings get thrown at us. Really, dude?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god. I don't buy that.
Yeah, I don't buy it either. Like, I can believe maybe 10, 15 years that it can take, and then you can add some reasons to it. Maybe they thought, there's just a lot of uninhabitable planets. They're the habitable ones. They wouldn't take them in because they knew they were like, because of like, of the Kree story that they made up for them. Like, some people still believe it, so some people hate Skrulls and all that. Some people just don't trust Skrulls because they can transform into other beings and all that. Like, you can add reasons to it, but I just don't believe that that in 30 years you can't find a planet, And so, yeah, I didn't like that at all. And so, yeah, someone was pissed off.
Especially since Carol Danvers was supposed to singularly help them with that frontier. And then at some point, she just fucked off and abandoned them?
They don't explain what exactly happened. It's just sort of like some of them just got mad. They defected, and now they want planet Earth because that's just the only place where they can live, And then they're trying. I don't mind what they're doing with Nick Fury. They're trying to say that he's old, washed up, and all that. And so we'll see where that goes. I don't know. But I mean, the actors, they work really well together. That's one really cool thing. Like, I really like, whenever one person shows up, like someone new shows up, they work really well together. And then, can I tell you what happened in the end of the episode?
Maria Hill dies.
Yeah.
So, and I heard that's like actually her. Yeah, I saw it, and like on some level I care, but on another level I kind of don't, because like you never did anything with her, and all you do in the show where you could develop her, you choose to kill her off at the end of the first episode just for pure shock value.
Mm-hmm.
It's things like this that just make me really glad Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. exists. As a different side note, in that those characters were kind of left untethered to any of this, because I have such little like trust in the brain trust at Marvel that I don't know what they would do with them. Even though Quake is supposed to come back, no one knows. In fact, maybe even no one knows if it's this show, but I did check recently, and even though Chloe Bennett did deny again that she was never contacted, the sources keep saying, no, she's back. So, I mean, but they never said secret. Some did, but a lot of them didn't indicate it was this show. I don't know how she would fit into the show, honestly, unless it was a random cameo. But a character who, if you just ignore the long divide there had been for many years between Marvel TV and Marvel Studios, a character that honestly could fit very well with the show if they cared enough to do so would be Coulson.
Mm-hmm.
The Coulson character, because of his relationship to Fury, that would be interesting to see how he would play here. But maybe in retrospect, it's a blessing that because all they would do is kill him off. If that's what they would do here. Yeah. Were you happy about the Maria Hill kill off, or it was just cheap and chalk value?
I wouldn't say I was happy, but I was kind of like, oh, I see why you did it. Because it was for shock value. Because before it was just kind of like, oh, Skrulls can be anyone. You just kind of like, the main character is going to be looking over their shoulder, who is going to be. But then the fact that the Skrull transformed himself into Nick Fury and was like, hey, Hill, I'm over here, and then shoots her. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, they're willing to, like, transform into, like, our main characters and, like, just trick anyone at any moment. And I'm like, okay, there was a purpose to it other than just shock value. Like, no, there's a little bit more to it. So...
yeah, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. This is not what Secret Invasion really is. Mm-hmm. Especially since like part of the appeal of the comic was to like you're playing with big major characters here. But maybe they decided they have no interest in doing that to any other major characters. And so they're going to use minor characters to use this storyline with, which, okay. Yeah. We'll see. Mm-hmm. I haven't seen it yet, but I do know that little, I guess, spoiler.
I think just wait till the second episode comes out, because that's how many episodes everyone else got.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. It's like, well, it probably would feel incomplete. I also have a suspicion it's not going to be terribly engaging. So it's just not something that maybe I would want to dedicate a week-to-week watch to, So yeah, not great. Not great at all.
Yeah.
Anywho, anything else before we go?
No, I think that's it.
All right. Well, thank you, David, for being here. I always appreciate your presence and what you contribute to the show. And I want to also thank everyone who was listening at home. Quick reminder, you can catch your podcasts anywhere you listen to podcasts every single Sunday. Until next time, stay under our spotlight for more content on movies and more. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.